It's time for Twig. This week in Google, Jeff Jarvis and Mathew Ingram are here. Lots to talk about. Holy cow. Julian Assange's arrest. Can you defend him as a journalist? Is it free speech? The bad news for Facebook just keeps on coming. And how Assassin's Creed is going to help rebuild Notre-Dame. It's all coming up next on Twig.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twig.
This is Twig. This week in Google, episode 504, recorded Wednesday, April 17th, 2019. Gelato in Perugia with Craig. This week in Google is brought to you by Grammarly. Grammarly is a communication tool that helps people improve their writing to be mistake-free, clear, and effective. Start writing confidently by going to Grammarly.com/twig and get 20% off a Grammarly premium account today. And by WordPress. Turn your dreams into reality and launch your website at WordPress.com. Get 15% off any new plan at WordPress.com/twig. It's time for Twig This Week in Google, the show where we cover the latest from the Googleverse. And boy, this is going to be the week that was. Joining us, of course, Jeff Jarvis. Welcome. Were you here last week?
Yes, I was. You weren't,
wasn't.
but I was.
Yeah, you and Stacy were
discussion.
Here. Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks to Jason Howell for filling in.
And then I missed you before that because I was traveling. So we're back.
Yeah, it's
we're
nice
back
to see
together.
You again.
Hugs.
You're supposed to do this, Jeff. Heart. He's the Leonard Tow Professor for Journalistic Innovation at the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism at the City University of New York. BuzzMachine.com is his blog. His books are available everywhere, including Public Parts, What Would Google Do, and Gutenberg the Geek. Very nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Now, Stacy's gone again. Where'd she go this time?
She is out with a migraine.
Oh, poor Stacy. Yeah.
Oh.
So she was. I thought she was planned for
She was
today.
planning on being here, but
We can go to the
feel
moon
better,
and we can't
Stacey.
cure migraines.
Isn't that ridiculous?
Jeez.
Yeah. But the good offices of Mathew Ingram are always welcome on the show. Chief Digital Writer at CJR.org, and a guy who had gelato with Craig Newmark in Perugia.
I did.
He was bragging about that
good.
just moments ago.
He wasn't. We were talking about Craig Newmark. Because,
No, it was
course,
a brag. It was a brag.
It was a humble brag.
Maybe a little bit.
It was a humble brag.
Brag.
How was Perugia this year? Did you? You don't go to Perugia,
Yeah,
Jeff?
No, I go.
You were there
great.
too.
Oh,
It was good, yeah. The weather wasn't that great, but
It's a journalism conference in one of the most beautiful towns in Italy, a beautiful medieval town, great food.
It's a wonderful conference and great discussions.
It's amazing,
I had a debate about European regulation.
Well,
I had a session about the death of the story.
Oh, interesting.
We had a session about things that journalists should know about the business of journalism. What about you, Mathew? What were yours?
I did a one-on-one with Alan Rusbridger, the former Guardian editor, and then I did
his new book, which you should plug.
Breaking the News. And then I did a one-on-one with Martin Moore, who also has a book about the impact of technology on politics and society. And I had a couple of panels as well. I mean, I think the highlight for me was seeing Maria Ressa from Rappler, the
you know Maria Ressa, Leo?
News site.
I don't even know Rappler,
She's the
which
founder
is a French.
of
It's French, right?
Rappler.
Rappler is
she's
Rappler?
Philippines.
Oh,
Philippines.
Oh.
Yeah.
And the bravest journalist I know by far.
Easily, yeah.
She's been arrested now by Duterte 8 times or 9 times.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, she was arrested again just before she came to Perugia.
Yeah.
That's and yet
amazing.
soldiers on.
Yeah, and she's relentlessly positive as well, which is amazing.
Wow.
For someone who's been through as much as she has.
This is you have to respect people of the press who continue to soldier on. And then there's Julian Assange.
Yeah.
Were you in Perugia when he got arrested? Because I would have loved her.
Just after.
Oh man, the conversation there.
After. Yeah.
So Assange, who of course is the founder of WikiLeaks, and was lionized, especially by the left early on, especially after Collateral Murder. That was the material leaked to WikiLeaks by Chelsea Manning. which showed footage of American drones killing journalists and other innocents, and was a big revelation back in the Obama era. Of course, Chelsea Manning went to jail. Obama later commuted her sentence. They finally threw Julian out of the Ecuadorian embassy, where he'd been hunkered down for, 7 years?
7 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Initially, he was
smelly years.
fleeing a rape charge from Sweden. That charge eventually dropped, but he still dared not leave the Ecuadorian embassy in London.
No, it hasn't actually technically been dropped.
Oh, he still. They just gave up.
They weren't going to pursue
on hiatus.
it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I have no comments about those charges. Assange himself said as soon as he started leaking stuff on WikiLeaks, it's just a matter of time before they come for me. He stayed in the Ecuadorian embassy, eventually wearing out his welcome. The Ecuadorians accused him of...
New government in Ecuador, too, had an impact.
Yeah.
Well, and remember, the Ecuadorian government has been strong-armed by the U.S. government over aid for doing things the U.S. didn't like, and I have to think there might have been some pressure on that along those lines as well, because
I would imagine
as soon as he was thrust out of the embassy with his cat, the Metropolitan Police in London picked him up at the request of U.S. authorities, and they are now attempting to extradite him to the U.S. But the U.S. is not charging him with the Espionage Act. Famously, Obama, the Obama administration decided that would be, frankly, too risky. They were afraid of using that big gun against Julian Assange and decided not to prosecute or attempt to prosecute him on grounds of espionage because they were afraid that could then be used down the road against other journalists. So, but the Trump administration, the Department of Justice, is going after him for hacking, because there's an email that Assange sent to Chelsea Manning saying, right? It was Chelsea Manning saying, can you...
It was a chat log.
Chat log, not email. Okay.
They're chatting about it.
Saying, I'll get my guys on this to help you.
Right. She's trying to match a hash for a password because she was trying to get into the files using the FTP account.
Rather than using her own account, which she thought had been overused.
Yeah.
To cover her tracks.
So... I give you all, and you guys know this obviously better than I, but I give everybody this background information so we can now have this conversation, because the U.S. still is not prosecuting him for espionage.
Not yet.
Which would raise a First Amendment issue because, of course, Daniel Ellsberg, who leaked the Pentagon Papers, the Nixon administration very much wanted to prosecute him for espionage. They did break into a psychiatrist's office.
So I think they're going to.
You think they will?
Yeah. I think this is just the thin edge of the wedge. That's my fear anyway.
Now, the extradition agreement apparently he has with the Brits is he can be extradited only on this specific charge of hacking.
No political charges.
Well, they can't get him and then add charges.
I'm not sure that's what it says.
Okay.
So it says he can only be extradited for that specific charge, but officials have already told CNN they're planning more charges. So,
interesting.
I mean, as soon as they get him.
Here's the interesting thing. Obviously, they didn't charge him with interfering in the U.S. election with the Russians. And obviously, the current president has, over the time, loved WikiLeaks for what it did.
Yeah, in fact, said that the Russians didn't hack the election, so there'd be no way the DOJ is going to go after him for that.
Although he claimed to know nothing about it. His last quote was,
I wonder at some point.
Oh, yeah, and Trump says, I know nothing about WikiLeaks, even though he invoked them,
praised them
many dozens of times during the campaign.
I wonder if it's a pro forma prosecution and then Trump pardons him.
Why would they do that?
Well, why would they even prosecute
him? Not they, he.
But they
was helpful to
work
Trump.
For he, don't they?
Yeah, I don't.
But he has the individual pardon power.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the hacking charge or the cracking a password charge is a fig leaf or whatever you want to call it. I think it's a Trojan horse, or I actually think that they are going to try to make a case. If you read the affidavit, which goes into a lot more detail than the indictment, they're talking like 80% of what they describe in there are things that journalists do with sources all the time. They're talking about them using a secure drop. They're talking about them using Jabber.
None of which is illegal.
Right. None of which is illegal. But the affidavit says that all of this is part of a conspiracy on the part of the two of them to get access to classified documents.
According to the latest, according to Motherboard, the government admitted it doesn't even know if the password was cracked. An FBI agent admitted in a newly unsealed court document the DOJ does not know whether Assange's offer to help Manning came to fruition. So it sounds like a fairly weak case.
Some experts have said they don't think, based on what is said in these logs, that it would even be possible. And there's certainly no evidence that Assange even tried. I mean, he lied to Chelsea Manning routinely. He could have just said, oh, sure, I'll help you crack that password. No problem. I'll get my guys on it.
So,
and then,
this is the issue. And certainly, while Assange was the darling of the left after collateral murder, he became less so when he was seen as a Russian operative, effectively working for the Russian government during the 2016 election. Nevertheless, it does raise the specter of, restraint of free speech. James Ball, writing in The Atlantic, says you don't have to like Julian Assange to defend him. The effort to extradite and prosecute the WikiLeaks founder threatens the free media. In fact,
if you look at other people we've been forced to defend, Larry Flint was no hero, that's for sure. Yeah, you can't choose the people that you build these cases around. It doesn't mean it's not a threat.
That's the old saying, free speech means nothing if you're defending the speech you agree with.
Right, if it's always people you like.
Right. Assange, Bell writes, Assange.
Yeah, Russ Bridger wrote one as well.
All right.
But you go first, Leo. Sorry.
Bell writes, Assange might be an a-hole. Scratch that. Assange is an a-hole. But we're going to have to stand up for him anyway. What did Rusberger write?
I think scratch, by the way, is an unfortunate verb in that choice, but
maybe not so accidental, but unfortunate.
Probably not. Knowing James. James, by the way, has a book coming out about the internet. Let's plug that. James is a wonderful journalist who worked for Assange at WikiLeaks before working for The Guardian.
Oh, he worked for Assange, so he knows Assange.
Oh, yeah, he knows him. He knows him. He volunteered to take Assange's cat.
Well, the Ecuadorians wish they had.
Says partnering with Assange was unpleasant, but his work is crucial. Many conservatives despise him for supposedly imperiling national security. Liberals will never forgive him for what he did to Hillary Clinton. He's an information anarchist, dumping vast oceans of material into cyberspace with barely a thought for the consequences. He's often portrayed as a useful idiot to Putin. He jumped bail in Britain, costing his two trusting supporters a small fortune. He is rude, aggressive, pompous, self-regarding, unreasonable, and even, as multiple sources say, smelly. There is, in short, not much not to love about Julian Assange. But he goes on, of course, and says that it depends. The laws protecting free speech should not depend on likability, mental health, or personal hygiene of those in the firing line. And Assange is now very much a target, being threatened with extradition to the U.S. to face charges. I wonder, is there any chance, Matthew, have you heard, is there any chance the extradition would not be granted?
So I think there is a chance. I mean, the UK in particular, if the US didn't take the death penalty off the table, if they didn't promise that there's no way that the death penalty would become an option, I don't think the UK would extradite if the death penalty was an option. So they might resist on that basis, or they might decide that it doesn't justify extradition. I mean, it's a pretty weak case if you look at the indictment. There's no actual proof that Assange did anything except say something in a chat log.
So it's funny because the Obama administration did not want to prosecute ultimately. They wanted to, but they didn't ultimately because of exactly this issue. Is he a journalist?
And I think that's the fear. The fear is that this government, the Trump administration, has been attacking the press verbally and otherwise, and that this is going to be part of their arsenal.
The irony of it is that the Trump administration likes Assange and WikiLeaks.
That's
they liked it right when they were doing something they wanted. Yeah.
So
but they could use this.
The last thing President Trump wants to do is carry President Obama's water.
Right. But if they want to go after
Hillary Clinton also thinks that Assange should pay for what he did.
And if they want to go after leakers, which I think they do, then they're going to try to criminalize journalist-source relationships. And this allows them to do that.
And that's the fundamental risk of this, right? Is that if you start, and this has been attacked, in fact, during the Obama administration, it was attacked again and again. They threw people in jail for not revealing sources. The fundamental risk in this is if journalists can't use sources safely, sources will dry up, and we won't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. The end result of this is the public will lose because there was no way to see through the veil of government.
Yeah.
Speaking of veils, though, and trying to go through a number of them in this story, what do we imagine that WikiLeaks has on Donald Trump?
Well, they might have the dossier.
Well, we all have the dossier.
Might have the tape.
We all have the dossier? Because I'd like to see it.
If there's a tape.
No, we have the dossier.
Oh, the tape. We all have the dossier. We need the tape. They might have the tape. Okay. So that now, if the president believed that was the case, that would explain why, even though Assange could have been a Russian cutout acting on his behalf during the election, he damn well doesn't want the guy out of the Ecuadorian embassy. He wants him somewhere where he. By the way, the Ecuadorians took away internet access.
I wonder whether there's not a scenario where. Oddly, he gets jailed, and oddly, he gets prosecuted. But talk about, Trump's been willing to offer. He just did it. He just offered his own employees pardons.
Yeah, which, by the way, I believe is illegal.
It's pretty illegal, yeah.
Because you're supporting a witness if you say, "Hey, just don't say anything, and I will pardon you when the time comes."
Even the fact that happened and no one really said anything, and we all just moved on, is mind-boggling to me.
The state of affairs is incredible. Incredible.
So I just see a scenario in which Assange is prosecuted on the least charge, and there's already a deal in place, a quiet deal in place that go through this, and then you'll double jeopardy. I'll pardon you for everything you've done, and we're done.
But why? Why bother?
Because he might have things on Trump.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, if anybody in the administration knows Assange at all, I'm sure that guy would turn on you in a second, right after signing a deal.
Yeah, but we're not talking about.
I know they're not geniuses over there, but someone will have thought of that, presumably.
Yeah, you don't want to get in bed with Assange. Kitty cat poop aside.
Already was.
Yeah,
the guy's a notorious,
Right. Again, though, we got to defend him because.
Right, that's the problem.
I mean, he's hard to defend.
You're forced to defend him, even though you don't want to defend him.
You have
to.
So
what about this question? What if he had been, if a Democrat were in the White House and he were charged with interfering with the American election as a dupe of Putin?
That's different.
Doing things that is different, right?
Yeah, but then you're not charging him with doing journalism. You're charging him with.
Acting as a foreign agent. However, he would argue, I just released emails, man. I just got information out there. That's journalism, he would argue.
Well, and it's the fundamental.
I agree with you, Leo, but that's the argument.
One of the things we talked about on Twitter on this issue was the stark contrast between what Edward Snowden did and what WikiLeaks does. So Edward Snowden also had a vast trove of information from the NSA that was illegally exfiltrated. He knew that he was in jeopardy. He attempted to do a whistleblowing thing and was rejected by the agency. So he said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this information. I am going to get it to a number of newspapers. I'm going to flee the country because I know regardless of what happens, I will be prosecuted for this. But the newspapers will be able to vet the material and release it with impunity. And that has a dual effect.
Well,
one, that the newspapers...
But with redaction.
Release it with forethought. And that has a second. Yes. So there's two things. One, the newspapers aren't going to go to jail because they're newspapers. But two, only the stuff that's safe to release can be released. It won't. In fact, WikiLeaks has been accused with the diplomatic cables that it released of putting people in jeopardy, putting foreign agents in jeopardy.
Yeah, although there's no evidence, even government sources have said there's no evidence that any of those cables put anybody in jeopardy.
Okay, but nevertheless, Snowden avoided any even whiff of impropriety. The theory being that the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Guardian, these people are going to go through it and clean it up, redact it, as you say, and put out the stuff that the people need to know.
But that's what fascinates me about this. About
WikiLeaks does the opposite. There's no editing, no redaction. It's a dump.
Quite the contrary.
Literally a dump.
He was enraged that the papers redacted at all.
But that's what fascinated me about WikiLeaks in the beginning, before Assange sort of lost his mind. And so Ed Snowden went through the sort of traditional, media route leak to the papers and then they publish. WikiLeaks was like this thing, outside of all norms of conduct that was just publishing things and releasing them on the internet. And what that did was force people to confront sort of new media, if you will.
Exactly.
Everyone can be a journalist. Everyone can be a publisher. Everyone can distribute content.
It's the digital Daniel Ellsberg. It's the digital Pentagon Papers.
And that changes everything. No gatekeepers. No, just release whatever information you have. And obviously there's problems with that. But I was fascinated by this sort of non-traditional journalistic entity, because some of the things it was doing were clearly journalistic, not all of them. And I don't know, to be honest. People keep saying, is Assange a journalist? Was he a journalist? Well, I don't know. What's a journalist?
Here's a fundamental question then. We accept the First Amendment should protect free speech, and that free speech should be extended to journalists, newspapers, and particularly so that truth can be spoken to power. Does the fact that it's a dump versus a redacted, does that change that? It's irrelevant, right?
First Amendment. The First Amendment doesn't protect journalists.
Right.
It protects everybody.
It protects everybody, but against government restrictions on speech. But the upshot of it is that newspapers can, with impunity, publish what they want.
Right, but there's nothing about newspapers in there.
Of course not.
That's the great thing about it.
Well, and the fact that the founding fathers, after writing the First Amendment, immediately broke it by restricting what newspapers could write about. I can't remember what it was, the Tax Act or something. Just shows that even the founders didn't really believe in it. So it's been under assault ever since. Nevertheless, I think at least, and we are, by the way, one of the few, if not only, countries that has such a First Amendment, right?
Amen. Yep. Oh, amen. And it's getting worse and worse and worse with the regulation of the net.
So it's a challenge in the digital age to because I think you can make a reasonable case. Remember that the First Amendment's limited a little bit. Was it Felix Frankfurter who said, but you can't shout fire in a crowded theater if there isn't a fire. That's not protected. So if it endangers people, it's not protected. So, can that be used to say, well, these WikiLeaks data dumps endangered people, so those parts of it are not protected?
Actually, the First Amendment rules in all the jurisprudence, you have to prove that there's a tangible and specific imminent threat. Tangible and specific imminent threat to specific individuals. You can't just say, this is threatening language.
By the way, it was Oliver Wendell Holmes, not Felix Frankfurter.
And he actually changed his mind. The fire in a crowded theater case is fascinating if you look at it.
There's a great article in the Atlantic.
That's a great article right there by Trevor.
It's time to stop using that quote. Tim.
It's hugely problematic. And in fact, Holmes changed his mind later and said it was a dumb decision.
Yeah. So then you don't think that endangering somebody is reason
so that's
to
the question.
What is free speech?
What is the limit?
Yeah, what's the limit?
I know I've had discussions with people about the use of radio in Rwanda, for example. Radio programs, preachers and so on, calling for violence, helped fuel massacres.
Oh, we've got lots of examples. WhatsApp groups in India that create rape squads.
Right. But is WhatsApp to blame for that? I mean, those people could have just been talking to each other around a campfire. There's nothing about the app itself except that it distributes it much farther and faster.
And that's the conversation we have a lot on this show, is the weaponization is what makes it so very different, the power of the internet.
But I think if you're committed to sort of the idea that, free speech and freedom of information has social benefits that outweigh the disadvantages, then you pretty much have to support something like WikiLeaks, even though Julian Assange is an asshole.
It's interesting because this original fire in a crowded theater, which goes back to World War I, was decided, it was against the Secretary of the Socialist Party of America. He wrote a pamphlet opposing the draft during World War I. It didn't call for violence, didn't call for civil disobedience. The Supreme Court put him in jail because they ruled it was a clear and present danger to a nation at war.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is far less. Really, what WikiLeaks has done is far less.
But meanwhile, now, we were talking about this last week a lot in the UK. Online harms, content that is not just illegal and harmful, but legal and harmful is going to be outlawed, and the obligation to do something about that will be on the platforms, not on government.
And it's huge chunks of it are so vague that it's going to be impossible to define. Bullying. You're not allowed to have bullying
Trolling,
disinformation.
Disinformation.
Well, what is that? Yeah, misinformation.
There's threats to speech all over, and in the U.S. too. I fear there's talk about saying, well, do we have too much speech? The New York Times Sunday said the only cure is less internet. It's getting to be really truly frightening, not just for the internet, but for speech as a whole.
Warren and others are talking about scaling back Section 230, which gives the platforms effective immunity for what's on their
our speech, for our conversation.
That could change things tremendously if they.
Yep. We should point out that that's a white paper. It is not law yet in the UK.
Right.
Oh, but it's going to be.
And well, given what's going on in the UK, it's hard to tell what is going to happen.
Yeah, well, they're a little busy.
Chaos over there. I mean, it's a train wreck. Actually, it's like a train where each car is a dumpster fire and it's crashing into a ravine.
While the bridge is out. Yeah.
Well said.
Well, this is a mess. This is a fine mess you've gotten us into, Julian. It actually seems like the lesser of all these problems, not just this UK online harms white paper, but the approval now of in the EU of the new Copyright Act. That's been gone through its final stages, and this week was finally approved. Now each country will have to implement it in law, and there may be some variations there, but that is a...
Well, and think about, I know this is in the lineup, I think, what Stars Entertainment did with my tweets.
Oh,
and
yeah,
EFF
we'll get to that
tweets.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's an example of what could happen if platforms are incentivized to take things down before they get, into trouble or block things from being uploaded completely.
Last week we talked about, and I won't go through it again, and the reason, but we talked about a post I wrote about a proposal for internet courts. Which might sound frightening, but actually what it says is that matters of legality on the internet should be settled in courts, not in companies, with due process in public, where we negotiate our legal norms. And the companies, I think, would love this, because they're being put in a position now where, as Mathew just said, if you don't take it down within 24 hours, you're under a huge fine. Ergo, you are going to play it safe and take down everything you can take down and cut off the public conversation.
This is what the Internet Archive was worried about, because they got one of those notices from the French copyright. Actually,
said it was filled with terrorism.
They asked them to take down things like Grateful Dead pages because it was terrorist, and they have 24 hours to do so or be blocked.
Massive fines. Yeah. And I mean, I like the idea of a court too. It sounds like a Justice League kind of thing. But I mean, who is going to be on this court? Like, who's going to decide?
This was a jurist who proposed this, and the court. No, the court is a government body. You have judges,
which
who are especially trained in the internet, and appointed, and as you would judges in any court.
Whose government? France?
Which government?
No, per nation.
So
you can't
have
an
in every
international
country.
You have an internet court in every country dealing with it, because you have to deal with the laws of that country. You could, in the EU, theoretically, you could probably have one across the EU, like you have a human rights court across the EU, and other courts. But no, otherwise it would have to be per nation, because you're dealing with enforcement of the laws of that nation.
Boy, it's really a Sophie's choice here, because or a Hobbesian choice, because
balkanized internet.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like
Mathew, we're already there. The platforms say we will enforce the laws of the nations we're in. The problem is they're being forced to make legal judgments with no legal authority, with huge liability. So what this does is, because that's government saying, oh, we don't know how to do this, so we're going to force you companies to do it with no guidance, with vague laws, and you're going to constantly be afraid that you're going to get some stuff wrong. We're going to fine your asses. And by the way,
is they'll filter everything.
Exactly. Even after NetzDG in Germany, the German government said, "Oh, they're taking down too much." Well, why? Because they are under a huge liability.
It really is actually almost literally a Hobbesian dilemma.
Yeah.
This Hobbes choice came from Thomas Hobbes' belief that a man must choose between living in a state of nature, a life which is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short, or suffering under an arbitrary and absolute government.
Sounds about right.
It's literally a Hobbesian dilemma.
Yeah.
I thought you meant Calvin and Hobbes.
Well, them too. But and honestly, I don't think this is basically there is no choice because there's both alternatives are terrible. We've seen government, we've seen regulation at work, we've seen governments
it is getting worse,
and it's not working. And yet we've seen an unregulated internet, and that's not working.
I think there's a real risk that countries like China and even Russia are effectively building their own internet.
Well, we've talked about splinter nets as well.
Won't even be part of it.
The only question is how splintered it will be.
Well, there was a piece arguing that we have 4 or 5 internets already.
Yes.
Right? There's the libertarian internet of Silicon Valley. There's the commercial internet of the rest of America. There's the bourgeois internet of Europe, where they want us to behave. There's the authoritarian internet of China and Iran. And there's the misinformation internet of Russia and North Korea.
Well, and I should point out that with each of the 50 states now enforcing their own privacy and net neutrality laws, there may be an internet for every state in the union.
Yep.
So and clearly that's not.
So we're going to have passports to go from one website to another.
You know what? That's actually technically achievable. Of course, that'll really improve the VPN market. But we can enforce location.
Sure.
Blocking.
And iris.
Well, here's the question.
You can only watch this show if you live in California, Texas, and Florida. What
does the internet resistance look like then?
Yeah.
Well, and this is funny because this is a conversation that goes way back to the earliest days of the internet. And I participated to some degree in this. I really encouraged people to get hacking skills because I always felt a corporate internet was going to eventually take over, and that the only way to save the internet would be have a secret net, a dark net that was inhabited by people with the technical skills to create it and live in it. And I bet you that's exactly what'll happen.
I think that's what the indie web and people like that are trying to do, is give people the tools to connect themselves instead of.
Well, certainly they don't want siloed corporate, Twitter, social networks and so forth, but they still want to live in the public and in the open.
Right.
But I think ultimately that's not even going to be possible because of government regulation and things like that.
Well, and there's actually been a big trend already to people sort of looking for private places to gather, private Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups.
Okay, by the way, that's an oxymoron, a private Facebook group. We know that now, and we're going to talk about that in a second. There is a lot to talk about, I realize now today. Wow.
Yep.
All right, let's take a break. Mathew Ingram is here. He is a digital writer, the chief digital writer at the Columbia Journalism Review, CJR.org, and always a welcome guest. You were at Globe and Mail, right, or were you at the Star? You were at the Globe and Mail.
I was at the Globe, many years ago.
Many years ago. You probably saw him on GigaOM and Fortune, now CJR. Jeff Jarvis, as I've already mentioned. Actually, I should read your other title. Sir Jeff Jarvis, Defender of the Faith, Order of the British Empire. No, that's the wrong one. There he is.
There it is.
Of journalism at CUNY. How about the short version? By the way, you guys at CUNY, and I saw Sarah's tweet. Your dean's tweet. Carson, did I bookmark that somewhere?
I feel inadequate. My description is nowhere near as long.
I know, you should work on it. There's Sarah Bartlett, the dean of CUNY, the Newmark School.
Who's been on the show.
Scroll down a little bit, though, Carson, because the most important part of that tweet is her pocket protector, which is, in fact, a truth protector.
This was our tribute to our benefactor and namesake, Craig Newmark.
Is he a truth protector?
Well, he also wore pocket protectors.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
Does he?
He's a giant nerd.
Yeah.
Does he still wear pocket protectors?
No, he doesn't now. But
not anymore.
I had a tech guy pocket protector I used to give out for years. And before that, we had a ZDNet pocket protector. But I like to live dangerously. I have a fountain pen in an unprotected pocket. So
expensive pen. The pen is worth more than the shirt.
Yeah, that's
you're,
my
you're
point
walking
exactly.
on the wild side there.
One thing that Pocket Protector and the pen cannot do. The pen may be mightier than the sword, but the pen is not mightier than Grammarly. And I have to say, while I like writing with a pen, my writing is more coherent and certainly more grammatical when I do it on a computer because of Grammarly. Grammarly is a communication tool that helps people improve their writing to be mistake-free, clear, and effective. The thing I find fascinating is the biggest proponents of Grammarly are the best writers I know. Paul Thurrott wouldn't write a word without Grammarly, not because he doesn't know grammar or spelling. He's very good at that. But Grammarly does more than it's more than a nanny correcting you. It's a writing assistant that helps you improve your communication, whether it's at school, at work, on your website, almost anywhere. Show your best self through writing. And by the way, Grammarly is available everywhere you write, including online. There's an online browser extension. There's a desktop editor. Even on mobile, there's a mobile keyboard and keyboard checker. Grammarly comes on Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and Edge, on iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac. They do have a free product, which you should certainly try. It reviews critical spelling and grammar. But Grammarly Premium is so much more, and that's what I really want you to look at. It watches spelling and grammar, but it also has advanced punctuation, structure. This is the key stuff. Style within context. So it understands whether you're writing a business proposal or an academic essay or a casual blog post. It not only understands the context, it suggests the appropriate style. It blows me away. Lisa, who is as a good business person, runs our company, tends to be, she's fast, she has a lot to do, so she tends to write short emails. And every once in a while, Grammarly said, you could not be a little nicer. In effect, I think it says, try softening this phrase with this. You could be a little nicer. And if I said that, she'd bite my head off. But if Grammarly says it, she says, oh, that's a good point, and we'll use it. It works. It helps you be more concise. It'll actually grade readability, so you can say, I'm writing this for a mass audience. I want to make this more unintelligible. Or I'm writing this for a college essay. I can use those big words. It actually does make vocabulary suggestions as well. No more email typos on the phone. Imagine that. Close more deals with work because your emails are more concise, precise. They say what you want them to say. Polish your resume. Get that new job. And I love the weekly Grammarly email I get, which always makes me feel pretty good saying, I used more big words than 90% of their other customers and things like that. It's just fun. You will love Grammarly Premium. So here's the deal. 20% off right now on the Grammarly Premium account if you go to Grammarly.com/twig. Do I have to spell Grammarly for you? Probably. Grammarly. There's no E in grammar. Grammarly.com/twig for 20% off your premium account. And by the way, we thank Grammarly for their support of This Week in Google. And we thank you for supporting us by using that URL, Grammarly.com/twig. I want a truth protector. I love that. But I'm not a journalist student, so
we'll get you one.
I still have my CUNY hoodie, my Town Night School hoodie. I love that thing.
But we have to replace that because now we have to have a new mark.
Oh, it should say new mark on it. Yeah.
Yes, it does. We do have those now. Yes.
Craig is a sweet guy. We were talking about him before the show. He's like he is like the most successful unicorn in Silicon Valley. They made $1 billion last year with 80% profit.
Nobody knows what they make, but
that's their guess.
It's a lot.
50 employees.
It's a lot.
Yeah. And he is very humble.
And he's a sweet guy.
Very humble.
Yeah.
He is amazing.
I hear that you had gelato with him in Perugia.
I did. It's true.
Where did you hear that from, Leo?
I paid for my own gelato, just to be clear.
No, I would make him pay. He can afford a gelato.
Craig has done more for journalism probably in the last year or two than anyone in the previous 50 years.
Now, this is where the disclaimer should come in that Facebook, you work with Facebook, Jeff, on a...
I raised money for my school from Facebook, from Craig Newmark and from others, but I'm independent of all of them and received no money personally from Facebook or Google or Twitter.
So I'm very curious what you both think about this story that came out from NBC. Now, this is a cache of documents that actually has been around for a while. The UK government had it for a while. We've talked about its provenance before. It was discovery material in a separate trial that the UK government kind of got from the guy. Facebook was pissed off about it, but apparently NBC has now seen it, combed through the 4,000 pages, largely from 2011 to 2015, and at least according to their characterization, and I want to emphasize that because they're not quoting this verbatim, they're characterizing what they read. So it is conceivable that they're mischaracterizing it. So I want to give Facebook the benefit of the doubt. However, if their characterization is accurate, this is the smoking gun that is the final nail in the coffin, the end of Facebook as we know it.
Not to oversell it.
Not to oversell it, but when I read this, I went, OMG, I'm sure glad I don't use Facebook. The documents, let me just read their NBC's characterization, and I would very much, I want to be fair to Facebook. So any quibbles or caveats or the documents, which include emails, web chats, presentations, spreadsheets, and meeting summaries, show how Zuckerberg, along with his board and management team, found ways to tap Facebook's trove of user data, your data, my data, our data, including information about friends, relationships, even photos, as leverage over companies it partnered with. In some cases, Facebook would reward favored companies by giving them access to the data. In other cases, it would deny data access to rival companies or apps. For instance, Amazon got extended use of that data because it was spending money on Facebook advertising and partnering with them on the launch of the Fire phone. On the other hand, Facebook discussed cutting off access to user data for a messaging app that had grown too popular and was viewed as a competitor. This is all they say, but not quoting, they say in the documents. And even worse, all the while, Facebook was formulating a strategy to publicly frame these moves as a way of protecting user privacy.
It's a win-win.
I know I shouldn't be shocked, but at this point, this is a criminal breach of our trust.
But okay, I don't know. The problem here is it's because they're not quoting what data.
Yeah.
There were rules in place for every app build. Let's go back to the time when Facebook thought of itself as a platform for apps. And at that time, when you wrote apps, if you followed certain rules, you got access to data. So now data has become the grand scare word. Oh my God, data. Well, data is just information, and it depends on what data. It depends on what your expectation was. It depends upon all of that. So it becomes meaningless without that kind of specificity. As to what it was. Did they do bad things? Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. Well, I don't know. But this whole notion of that we're going to trade access to data for certain behavior is the way that Facebook has operated from the beginning. And by the way, every media company operates. You buy ads, you get access to data about the users there. That's the way it's operated for a very long time.
But I think the one thing that you could say about some of what NBC is talking about is that there's a clear potential antitrust aspect if Facebook is using its users' data and giving it to certain partners and not to other partners, especially if those other partners have a messenger app that is a threat to Facebook. I mean, that's a very clear, like if I was an antitrust lawyer,
in the years when this was supposedly happening, they weren't as big.
Well, they were still pretty big.
2011 to 2014, they were pretty big.
They were pretty big.
Facebook's response
I thought it was 2005.
Let me. I'm sorry, I may be misquoting. Let me go back.
I could be wrong.
2011 to 2015.
Okay, all right.
They were pretty big.
And I think that's a very obvious antitrust or potential antitrust.
Facebook's response is that the documents were cherry-picked. They were cherry-picked during the reason these documents exist. There was a lawsuit by 643, the creators of the Bikinis app. Facebook says they cherry-picked those documents from years ago as part of a lawsuit to force Facebook to share information on friends of the app's users. The set of documents, by design, because it's being used in a lawsuit, tells only one side of the story and omits important context. We still stand by the information, the platform changes we made in 2014-15 to prevent people from sharing their friends' information with developers like the creators of bikinis. The documents were selectively leaked as part of what the court found was evidence of a crime or fraud to publish some, but not all, of the internal discussions at Facebook at the time of our platform changes. But the facts are clear, Facebook says, and this is actually Facebook's Vice President and Deputy General Counsel, Paul Grewal. The facts are clear. We've never sold people's data. That's a non-denial denial because they're not being accused of selling people's data.
They did talk about it.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that comes up in the documents.
They talked about it.
And that shouldn't surprise us, right? Media companies, I know, if they've been smart enough to get any damn data,
right?
Talked about whether there was I've sat in media companies where they talked about, is there a marketplace for our data? Indeed, when I worked at Time Inc., we sold data. We sold your name and your address and what you subscribe to.
Oh, yeah.
We sold lists.
That happens all the time.
We did as part of our business.
Yeah, sure, exactly. If you've got a mailing list, that's valuable. You can sell it.
Not just the mailing list, but the data behind it and what could be aggregated around that by companies like Axiom.
Right.
So this has been part of the media business for a very long time. Again, I'm not trying to defend Facebook here, but I am trying to say that we don't know enough to come to grand conclusions that this is, oh my God, it's a smoking gun. It's the worst thing that could happen. We just don't know enough. And I think that given the one more thing, Matthew, one more thing. Given the atmosphere these days of media coverage and moral panic, I hate but my chair is a really lonely one trying to defend the internet. But I fear if you look at what's happening with regulation in Europe, this kind of talk without evidence could lead to things like this from the UK, and it could hurt the internet.
I want to defend the internet, but the Facebook is not the internet, and in fact, Facebook damages the internet more than any conversation if they're doing stuff like this.
As you said earlier, you might have to defend to go to your view. You might have to defend Julian Assange to defend speech.
But for Facebook to say we keep your data private, and in fact, the very implicit promise of Facebook is you put your private stuff on there, and friends can see it, nobody else. That you control who can see your data.
No, I put everything on there as public, and I'm very.
That's your choice, but honestly, Facebook.
Yeah, but that's
what Facebook says. I mean, you ask anybody in the street when you share something on Facebook to your family, do you expect them to sell it to somebody else?
For selling it,
okay, or give it to a favorite partner.
That's what happens, Leo. Don't be naive. That's what happens when an advertiser targets an ad. They're getting access to the data. They're making use of that data to target that ad.
And that's one of the reasons I want to understand this better.
Every media company does.
Yes, because NBC could be characterizing, and by the way, NBC does it.
NBC does it,
but they could be characterizing that kind of behavior as giving data up. Or actually giving people the data. Because Facebook might say, well, yes, you can buy an ad against a demographic, but that doesn't mean we're giving you information about Leo. And so that's the real question is, and absolutely, NBC sells ads against the demographic all the time. Everybody does.
I sat in a meeting with Google once, some years ago, where the publishers were all saying to Google, give us data, give us data, give us data. And Google said, no. And they said, if you want access to the value of that data, you use our ad server and you get access, but we don't give you the data, right? That's the way this operates. So yes, there's access to the data to that extent. And yes, you can target things and you can do things. Where the data is residing, this talk becomes very naive at that point.
But we're also talking about an entity that's much, much larger and has oceans more data than any media entity that's ever existed.
And I would again,
companies are too damn stupid to have done this on their own.
But are you saying
company I know wants this and should have done this and didn't?
But are you saying users are stupid for trusting that Facebook wouldn't do that? Are they dumb for not realizing? Well, everybody does it. You're stupid.
What's the what that they're doing that you're accusing them of doing?
Well, that's
here?
The question.
Right, and if it's nothing more than saying, hey, Amazon, these people are likely to want to be stupid enough to want your phone because of this fact and this fact and this fact. That's the nature of media advertising today.
Absolutely.
Period.
Absolutely.
So we're indicting, and there may be reason to indict Facebook. They're doing lots of stupid things. I'm not denying that, but let's not have the trial without the evidence.
Right. And to be fair to Facebook, we should point out that the bikinis app that was in this lawsuit that this data came from, the entire apps was designed to peek at people in bikinis, and the way it got that information is getting photos not just from you but from your friends, and Facebook cut them off, saying, you can't get photos not just of the people who are using the bikinis app, but their friends and friends of friends. That's when Facebook very famously turned off that friends of friends feature. And that's a pretty reprehensible use of that data. So
it is, because all these things start with good intentions and good use, and then bad people come along and figure out how to exploit it to the ill. Yeah. And the tech companies never saw enough what could have happened, and then they got caught in arrears. That's the reality we've got to deal with now. So now you have to assume the worst more often than we did in the early days of the internet. We didn't do that.
Right. All right. I think that we have to hold off.
We got to wait for evidence
until there's,
and the evidence could be bad,
more than just a characterization of the evidence. But it's kind of like the Barr report. We got the 4-page letter. This is the 4-page letter.
The Onion. So he's going to have a press conference tomorrow at 9:30. The Onion said he's going to do a representative dance of it.
There is, of course, there are email, there are reactions, there are discussions. But again, a lot of internal company discussions might propose that they do something that they never do for very good reason, and that's not a smoking gun.
I have read some really stupid memos in my day, and written a few.
Yeah,
we could do this.
Here's some. There are a few quotes in here. In late November 2012, Zuckerberg sent a long email to Facebook's senior leadership team saying Facebook shouldn't charge developers for access to basic data feeds. He said that access to Facebook data should be contingent on the developers sharing all of the social content generated by their apps back to Facebook, something Zuckerberg called full reciprocity. The existing arrangement where developers weren't required to share their data back with Facebook might be, quote, good for the world, but it's not, quote, good for us, Zuckerberg wrote in the email. So this is the kind of cynicism that worries me.
It's the kind of bluntness that happens inside companies.
But you're right.
I've been inside company meetings where executives kind of cackle about, how could we, get as much money out of subscribers and fool them into. I was around in my industry when the credit card subscription came in, and there were meetings that I sat in of trying to convince people who were dead and stopped reading the magazine to still charge them for it because they didn't know how to cancel it. Companies do bad stuff.
Yeah. And may even talk about bad stuff in their emails.
And they talk about bad stuff, and they cackle about bad stuff.
Right.
And
all right.
Doesn't make them bad or good yet.
I have to say, I was really disheartened day before yesterday. I'm at home. It's a day off. Lisa texts me, Notre-Dame is burning, and it's a terrorist attack. And, of course, it isn't. It wasn't. It looks like it was arson, not arson, but accidental, whether it was arson, intentional or accidental fire. They're not sure still. But nobody is asserting it was a terrorist attack, except YouTube, where they likened it to 9/11. They even showed a fact-checking article from Wikipedia about 9/11. They initially, apparently, they're automated, and this is all automated stuff, I'm sure, because no sane human would have done this. Their automated stuff flagged it as potentially fake news, and they wanted to, and then they put their fact-checking information up under it. But this really does kind of underscore why algorithms have a problem.
You know what, Leo? I had, before that happened, before that came out, I saw many people on Twitter say, oh my God, this reminds me of 9/11.
And it sure did. When you saw the steeple fall, it looked so much like 9/11.
And so I get the criticism of YouTube in this case, and it doesn't help them. But I also, they're mimicking human behavior.
Yeah, great. I would actually hope
that's
for
part
better.
Of the problem. Yeah, that's part of the problem.
Both Lisa and I were very saddened by the thought that somebody could have done this on purpose, as it turned out. Of course, it wasn't the case. And it was
my favorite story in all of this, which was I think Atlantic story. The guy who died not long ago, who was an architecture expert, and he took a detailed laser map of the entire structure.
I saw that. Wasn't that
could
incredible?
well help with the reconstruction.
Yeah.
There was a lovely story.
They built detailed models for when they were doing Assassin's Creed as well.
Oh, wow.
Inside and outside.
Yeah. A YouTube spokesperson said those informational panels are triggered algorithmically. Our systems sometimes make the wrong call. We're disabling these panels for live streams related to the fire. YouTube correctly, and this is The Verge writing, and quickly identified the Notre-Dame fire as a breaking news event, surfaced trusted news outlets near the top of the search results. So that part of the algorithm, in fact, worked as intended. It really just
getting better at this stuff.
Yeah, it's not an indictment of YouTube, but it is an indictment of algorithmic.
And that's why every time Mark Zuckerberg says, AI is going to solve this problem.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah. You're going to Google I/O, right, Jeff?
Yep. So I'm thinking that's Tuesday is the keynote. So I'll take some medication to get me over the bridge to come up Wednesday.
I got a bottle of whiskey I'll have for you. Jeff is not driving, so it's okay.
No, I'll be driving. That's the problem.
Oh, you're going to drive? Oh.
Well, how else do I get up there?
Well, I thought we could. Jeff would gladly pay for an Uber.
Take a
Send your
helicopter.
drone.
No, we'd gladly pay for a car for you.
Oh, well, that's a long way.
Well, that's all right. It's worth it.
Helicopter.
Jason Howell will be going. I think Florence Ion, both from All About Android. And Jeff, we will be covering it's going to be a tough week, a big week, because Build, the Microsoft Developers Conference, is at the same time again this year. So Monday,
Google, Microsoft, Microsoft.
Well, we're going to do both of them because I'm fair. So Monday we'll be doing the Microsoft keynote with full knowledge that last year it was so long they had to have a stretch break in the middle, 3.5 hours.
What did they announce that was so
nothing?
That took all that time?
Nothing. In fact, to be honest, I seriously considered not covering it. Then I thought, but we're going to do Google's developer event the next day, Apple's the next month. We really have to.
You don't cover F8.
No, I refuse. We had a couple of times we ran the F8 stuff, and it was so horrible that we decided never to do it again. And then we have not missed anything newsworthy since, I might add.
I was going to go to F8. I just decided I got too much work at home, so I'm not going to go this year.
Yeah. But we will do the Google keynote right first. I'm sorry, the Microsoft keynote at Build, all however many hours. Then it'll be a special edition of Windows Weekly following that. Then the next day we'll do the Google I/O event, followed by, I guess, depending on how long. Google at least is a little disciplined with their keynotes.
Oh, they are.
They used to do 2 days. That was a tough one for us, but they've got it down to, I think, just a couple hours now. So we'll then do.
So are Jason and I going to do something from the scene, or
no? I don't think so. That's too hard. So we'll let you guys, enjoy, go look at stuff,
absorb, digest.
Maybe pick up your new Pixel phone if such a thing. Yeah. Well, look at this. Google teases new Pixel announcement.
Yeah, they give us the cheap one. No.
Well. Why not? The 3A and the 3A XL are set for announcement that day, May 7th. We've seen a lot of details. The Google Stores page says, help is on the way, which is, by the way, the tagline also for the Avengers Endgame, a apparently hotly awaited movie about comic book heroes. This is the Google Store image. Help is on the way on May 7th. Something big is coming to the Pixel universe. So, I don't know. Maybe
they be fooling us that it's not the 3A, that it's something else in the Pixel world?
Absolutely. For instance, they already have Avengers in the, the augmented reality thing in the camera. It could just be some special end game content.
Could be a watch. It could be a new Pixel book.
There have been rumors of both new watches and a return of the Google Pixel book. Could be.
Which I'm dying for. Mine's getting a little long in the tooth. That would be nice.
Yeah, and I don't think the Slate is really worth getting. So
no.
Anyway,
Kevin Toffel's happy with his, but
yeah, he loves it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we will be covering that event, and then the next day you're going to come up across the bridge. I have scattered cupcakes to lure attractive men.
Yeah, mine'll be stale by then. Yeah.
I want some cute boys to come pick up cupcakes. So it'll be a special in-studio version of This Week in Google. That'll be May 8th, a few weeks from now. By the way, speaking of YouTube, I don't know what to make of this Bloomberg article because I don't even understand what the metric would be. But according to Mark Bergen and Lucas Shaw writing in Bloomberg, to answer critics, YouTube tries a new metric, responsibility.
Yeah, I don't even know what that means.
And Bloomberg does not make it clear in any way. So, of course, the traditional reward is views and subscriptions, right?
Well, they also use quality watch time.
Yeah, this is new. So the Google division introduced 2 new internal metrics in the past 2 years for gauging how well videos are performing, according to people familiar with the company's plans. One tracks the total time people spend on YouTube. That includes not only watching video, but posting comments and reading comments. The other is called, and this is the one you were talking about, Mathew, quality watch time.
Mm-hmm.
A squishier statistic, writes Bloomberg, with a noble goal to spot content that achieves something more constructive than just keeping users glued to their phones. Well, I don't know what that would be.
And it's not clear how they're coming up with it. Are they just surveying users? Did you think this was a quality experience? Are they testing it with human beings? Do you think this was a quality suggestion? It's unclear how they even come up with it. I mean, it sounds great.
YouTube declined to comment on the new metrics, but a spokeswoman said, there are many metrics we use to measure success. That's what they
do, Mathew. They do. Both platforms do a lot of that, of asking people
they do.
After something. So I think that's a likely.
It's such a vague criteria.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard all over. So this is a discussion I had in Perugia, but I didn't have any gelato when I was there. I did, however.
I should have.
I should have, but I didn't. I had no gelato in Perugia. But so I had this conversation with one of the platform executives a few weeks ago, where I said, we keep on going to you guys and saying, clean up the content world, but we won't clean it up ourselves, right? There's a big standards effort in journalism, and who's in the room? RT, the European Broadcasters Union. Who's on stage? RT. Digital Content Next. Who's a member? Fox News. And forgetting trying to smash Fox News because they do good things and bad things, so does the New York Times. So does every organization. We don't criticize our own field. We don't hold ourselves to account in our own field in any way. And we're expecting the platforms to know best. They don't know what quality is. They don't know what journalism is. They have no idea. But we won't do it ourselves. And I'm starting to think that it's time for the anti-Pulitzer.
By the way, congratulations to the Pulitzers.
Mm-hmm.
Some really good work done, and the Pulitzers were awarded yesterday. I
did not get one.
You did not? Oh.
No.
South Florida
Shout
Sun
out
Sentinel.
For another year.
Got one for their coverage of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting. Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We know what happened in Pittsburgh. It's a shame that seems like the best way to get a Pulitzer is to cover a mass shooting.
Yeah.
University of Southern California gynecologist George Tyndall, who sexually abused hundreds of students at the campus clinic. The coverage in the LA Times of that.
That definitely deserved an award.
I really liked the New York Times investigation of Trump's finances. That was a really great piece. That the
I worked
Times.
with Suzanne Craig.
Did you?
At the Globe and Mail, yeah.
Nice. David Barstow, Suzanne Craig, and Russ Butner. 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
This is why journalism is expensive and hard to do well. And I don't think the Pulitzer pays you back, but I'm sure the Times is glad to celebrate. 18 months they worked on that. So
Just for fun, I looked into how you're supposed to pronounce it.
Pulitzer.
Pulitzer, yeah.
Pulitzer.
Lots of people say Pulitzer.
Yeah, there's not Pew. The Pulitzers never liked it when people said Pulitzer.
Right.
Is it ProPublica or?
Good question. That I don't know.
I say ProPublica.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Publica. Who says Publica?
Public. How about
It's
Publica? Definitely wrong.
Oh, Leo, you just can't help yourself to that.
Yeah. We should edit that out.
Definitely wrong.
Edit that out.
It's
And
the
we're back.
Pulitzers.
Pulitzer.
Because Lily Pulitzer
Sounds like
said
putz.
Pulitzers.
It's more like pull, I think.
Pulitzer.
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 Pew.
That's maybe a matter of accent. That may be a matter of accent.
Yeah,
accent.
from
Anyway.
Boston.
If I ever get one, I'll know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, you'll learn. It's pronounced the Nobel Prize. Actually, I was looking at the YouTube metrics. They do have a lot of signals. Of course, they have the like buttons and they have the, they have a lot, but they do surveys as well. They ask people. Yeah. Well, as long as we're talking about Facebook, we got to mention this piece in Wired. Scandals, backstabbing, resignations, reboots, record profits, and time bombs. 15 months
I didn't get through it all yet.
No, it's very long. It's really
good,
as
though.
long as the 15 months of fresh hell inside Facebook. It is a good piece. Nicholas Thompson and Fred Vogelstein writing in the business section of Wired.
I was there
really
watching Nick report it in Davos last year.
Oh, yeah.
I was at an event where he cornered Cheryl for quite a long time.
Interesting.
It is kind of interesting think about how Wired was covering Facebook and Google not that long ago, a few years ago, maybe. It's been quite a turnaround.
No, but Nick has been reasonable.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about Nick. I just mean Wired as a whole.
Right. I mean, he's been.
There was a certain boostery
most
quality before.
I have to say, though, I'm going to reiterate something I started to kind of say earlier, which is if you'd want to defend the internet, you need to also not only defend it against moral panic and bad governments, but you need to also defend it against bad actors on the internet.
Yeah.
They do more damage.
Yeah.
They do more damage than anybody because.
And I would argue that Mark Zuckerberg's primary motivating goal is to become the internet.
Yeah.
And in some countries like Myanmar and Cambodia and the Philippines, Facebook is the internet.
Yeah.
And that's not good, I would argue.
And in countries like China, the government is the internet.
Yeah. Also bad.
not good.
It's a
We are the
Hobbesian
internet.
choice, you might say.
Yes, literally. So
That's why I want to be part of the internet resistance.
I can't even scroll through the whole article, let alone
I want
read
to be part of the planetary internet.
I also want to live on Google Island, let's be honest.
Wherever John Perry Barlow is, that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's good music, that's for sure.
Yeah.
There was some interesting stuff in that piece, though, the Wired one. In particular,
It wasn't a
there was some
rehash
interesting-
of everything we already know? Or?
Well, there was some, but there was more detail about different things. So there was a lot more detail about why the guys at Instagram left. There was, and we've read a little bit about that, but there was more detail about kind of how things worked out. Basically, from the sounds of it, Mark decided that Instagram was effectively competing with Facebook. And so he removed a lot of the growth drivers and connections that were helping Instagram. And then he introduced things that the Instagram guys had always resisted, like hamburger menus and stuff like that. So
did they imply that he put in hamburger menus to reduce the growth? Because that would be an interesting use of hamburger menus.
No, they did imply, though, they suggested that Kevin Systrom thought some of these changes were made deliberately to try and get him to leave.
Oh.
Like, just to get him mad so that he would quit.
But you can't fault Mark for looking at the overall health of the company instead of just one division.
Of course not.
That's kind of his job. And
it's very similar to what happened with the WhatsApp guys.
Right.
They
almost identical.
Facebook said, look, we're going to do a bunch of stuff. And I know we said we weren't going to do that, but now we are. So, so long.
Mark Zuckerberg's card very famously for years. Does it still say, I'm CEO, bitch?
No, he got rid of those.
Oh. Yeah. Somebody suggested in the chat room his card should read, I'm the internet now, bitch.
Those cards are in a locker along with his flip-flops.
Yeah, and his hoodies. No, he should I play the
What?
The movie?
Kara Swisher interview?
No, this is
Hey everyone,
this is Songify.
we are live from my backyard.
Songify
where
this.
I am smoking these meat like a brisket. I'm making meats now. Someone asked me, do I smoke meat? It's gonna be delicious. Yeah, if I smoke meat, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Give me the sock, give me the sock. C-U-C-C sock. Say my name, baby. Give me the sock, give me the sock.
This song is from the live stream
Hello to you.
Mark did from his
Thanks for
backyard one
hanging out
Saturday
with me in
afternoon.
my backyard while I'm smoking these meats
While he was
too.
smoking
the
meat.
thing about smoking meat is it takes a long time sitting around. with
Totally
my
realistic
Wi-Fi.
looking backyard, right?
Grilling meats.
I think it's a
racing
set.
cars are
That's the fence.
totally
The fence is
a
going to go on
set.
fire.
Totally a set.
manual
Well, there's the
transmission.
extra coming in.
I enjoy
Someone's going to
that.
push the
Do I-
fence over and
Yeah, smoking these
the boom mic will come in.
I think they're the Songify this guys.
Oh no.
My
It
favorite
seems I
was someone,
daydreaming again.
I, a human being, enjoy.
This is actually a good part. Show this part. This is
No.
pretty funny.
Oh no. It seems I was daydreaming again.
That's why I made clear that you have had subpoenas. Is that correct?
Mr. Zuckerberg, what is Facebook doing to prevent foreign actors from interfering in U.S. elections?
We are smoking these meat like a brisket. I'm making meats now. Someone
I'm
asked me,
sorry,
do I
there's no
smoke
reason to
meats?
play
It's
this.
gonna be delicious. Yeah, if I smoke meat, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
But I do enjoy it. I do enjoy it.
He always seems like a sort of poorly programmed
Yeah.
android.
Yeah, so I'm fritzing out a little bit. The reason I thought of that is because in the song he says, I'm wearing my weekend purple T-shirt. At work, I wear my gray T-shirt. That's what made me think of it. I think that's old anyway. Sorry I even brought it up. It has no news benefit whatsoever.
Yeah,
Not
it's fine.
sorry.
Yeah.
You're not sorry.
I'm not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. What else?
Are we still talking about the Wired thing?
Yeah, if you want.
Well, the other thing that I thought was interesting, at least I don't know if anybody else would be interested, was the sort of drama involving Chris Cox, who was at one time kind of Mark's right-hand man and
Fair-haired
effectively
boy.
ran
Long time.
most of Facebook.
Yeah.
And it sounded like there was a pretty significant falling out, in part because of what Mark wanted to do with news. There's a bunch of stuff in there, and obviously a lot of it is hearsay, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
Because that was a pretty big departure.
Yeah, it was a shock when he left.
Mm-hmm.
And-
A lot of people thought he would take over at some point.
Right. Actually, Cox is one of the people who helped Mark get rid of Instagram's system and slow Instagram's go down. So the Wired article implies that it was a shift in power.
Yeah.
Some of the company's most senior executives, notably Chris Cox, thought Facebook needed to give serious publishers a leg up. Others pushed back, including Joel Kaplan, a former deputy chief of staff to George W. Bush. Facebook's
That's the other interesting thing. So Kaplan's argument apparently was, if we introduce quality rankings, everyone will assume we're against conservatives.
It says supporting high-quality outlets would inevitably make it look like the platform was supporting liberals, which could lead to trouble in Washington, a
Kaplan,
town
remember, was the
run
guy who
mainly
sat
by
behind,
conservatives.
Right behind Kavanaugh, yeah. It mentions
Kavanaugh,
that
yeah.
too.
threw a party for him.
But apparently, at the end of the climactic meeting on July 9th, Zuckerberg sided with Kaplan, and he tabled the decision about boosting publishers, effectively killing the plan. To one person involved in the meeting, it seemed like a sign of shifting power. Cox had lost, Kaplan had won. And, of course,
And so
the
the other
upshot
thing-
was that news organizations lost big time.
Yeah. But the other thing they mentioned, and I had forgotten about this part, was that Chris Cox apparently was not a fan of the new move towards private, encrypted, ephemeral messaging. So he was, I guess, resisting that.
That was the story we had seen, because it came right after Zuckerberg's manifesto about going
And Chris was in
private.
charge of the Facebook product and all that it represented.
Yeah, what does that leave? And by the
I
way,
think
I was all excited about that. Remember, I even reactivated my Facebook account. And since absolutely nothing has happened in that direction, I now see it as a ruse, effectively, and I have deactivated and, in fact, deleted my Facebook account. But I did something the other day.
Remember that when they said they were going to implement some switch where you could clear your, and what was that? Like it was a year and a half ago or more.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, I'm leaving Facebook.
Fool me 7 times.
Fool me every single freaking day. So maybe I've been fooled again.
Well, they said it was going to take a long time to do this.
Yeah, don't leave, Leo. This is going to take a long time.
We're working on it.
I'll create a new account when
we're working on it.
But I did believe this blog post on the Twitter blog when they said we want to make people feel more safe on Twitter. Saying that they are going to be more proactive, in fact, taking action without reports. People who don't feel safe on Twitter shouldn't be burdened to report abuse to us. Previously, we only reviewed potentially abusive tweets if they were reported to us. We know that's not acceptable. Wow, that's a big change. So we are making it a priority. We did that earlier this year to take a proactive approach to abuse in addition to relying on people's
But is that actually going to change that much? I mean, lots of the people who've complained about abuse, when they flag a tweet, the response is almost always, that doesn't breach our terms and conditions.
Right. Yeah, I saw a shocking one yesterday.
Yeah, some of them are horrible.
And Twitter said, well, that doesn't violate our...
I mean, that's the problem, not their ability to kind of do it in advance or wait for you to flag. It's the criteria they're using.
They say this time last year, 0% of potentially abusive content was flagged to our teams. I think that's too low a number. Today, by using technology, 38% of abusive content that's enforced is surfaced proactively for human. Technology.
We're using technology
to keep people safe. So I reactivated my Twitter account because if that's true,
Did you?
Well, I thought, here's one way to find out.
All right.
I'm going to put my big fat butt on Twitter and see what happens.
Yeah, because you actually, I was shocked that you retweeted the dean's tweet.
Yeah, I thought, well, let's see if they're serious about reducing abuse. Because and
somewhere there's an algorithm that says it's like the old dead or Canadian. Is Leo here? Or is Leo not? Is Leo here? Or is Leo not?
Yeah. Even my wife was shocked to see me tweeting. Jack Dorsey suggests big change for Twitter.
Oh, and this pissed people off.
Pissed people off.
Going to switch so you could follow topics.
Yeah.
No.
He suggests a fundamental change to the social network in which users would follow topics instead of individuals. They are an interest-based network, so you'll see content from anyone sharing the same interest as opposed to, and by the way, this just...
This is just the Discover tab, right? Basically.
Which I never use.
Which no one ever uses, yeah.
Yeah.
Never.
So
what amazes me is whenever Jack talks, like forget about the wardrobe and all that. Forget about
the meditating,
the weird diet.
Myanmar. Yeah, right.
I mean, the thing that always strikes me is it's like a guy who has never used his own product is talking. Like it's like they just grabbed a guy off the street and asked him about what they should do about Twitter. It's mind-boggling.
I have a lot of respect for Jack Dorsey. I think he's created some very amazing things, including Square. Maybe he doesn't use Twitter. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't.
Maybe he shouldn't.
His experience of Twitter is inevitably different from any other person's experience.
His experience of everything is different.
Yes.
Life.
And his diet isn't that weird. It's normal to fast. That's normal.
Wait. That's you saying that. You are not the judge of weird diets.
Would you like a cupcake, Jeff?
I'm on the all cupcake diet.
By the way, I have been handed a pocket protector. Apparently it offended my staff that I might get my pen on my nice shirt. So I have my ZDTV
ZD.
pocket protector. Yeah.
Or ZD, as we call it up here.
ZDTV. And by the way, as soon as we found that out, we changed the name. Canadians call it what? Anything else? What else should we talk about? The Secret Service. This was a strange story. We talked a couple of weeks ago about the woman who was arrested
Mar-A-Lago.
at Mar-a-Lago carrying
the USB stick.
a number of things.
Oh, yeah.
Numerous cell phones and passports. And I think fairly significantly, given that the president was in residence at Mar-a-Lago, a malware-infested USB stick. The fact that she got so far is already amazing.
Yeah, she also had a laptop, cash,
$8,000 in cash,
and a camera detector.
Yes, a signal
By the
detector.
way, how does that work?
I guess it's based on the radio signals from the camera.
You watch TV. You've seen them sweep a room for bugs and cameras.
Don't you watch MacGyver?
I don't know.
They make them in China. They're $1.98 on
Yeah, you
Amazon.
can get it on Amazon.
I don't know. She had 9 USB drives, 5 SIM cards, and a partridge in a pear tree. However, the thing that got my attention from the Miami Herald article about all of this is what the Secret Service did.
Yeah, he plugged it into his computer.
When they caught her.
What an idiot.
Secret Service agent Samuel Ivanovich, who interviewed Zhang on the day of arrest, testified at her hearing. He stated, when another agent put Zhang's thumb drive into his computer, okay, red light bells and flags going up now, it immediately began to install files. Oh, you think?
A very out of the ordinary event.
What?
That's not that out of the
Come
ordinary.
on. You work at the Secret Service? A very out of the ordinary event that he had never seen happen before. During this kind of analysis, we stick thumb drives in all the time. This never happens. The agent had to immediately stop the analysis to halt any further corruption of his computer.
I love how he says another agent put it into his computer.
Yeah.
Someone
not me.
else put it in. It
wasn't me. I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
Someone from Canada. You don't know
it was a Canadian agent. It was,
I just found a camera detector.
Yeah. It would only work if it's a wireless.
You can disable them too.
No, not according to this.
Oh, really?
Lightweight battery-powered device. I put it in the chat that allows users to, not the chat, but the rundown, to detect, identify, and locate hidden cameras of any kind. It does not matter whether the camera is wired or wireless, transmitting or in standby mode. If the lens is pointing outward in surveillance mode, like the whole internet, the hidden camera detector will be able to identify it.
That's going to be useless. It's going to go off all the time. Okay, let's order one just to see if it notices that I'm on camera.
Through the spy finder lens, a hidden camera lens appears as a bright flickering spot of light, making it easy for the user to identify and locate if necessary.
Oh, interesting.
Handy.
I might buy that. What? $248? Stick that in your computer for analysis. Wow. Okay. She had that too. So
there's also there's a deluxe professional camera detector that's $599.
Comes with a backpack. You know.
I do remember buying X-ray specs from the back of a comic book.
Yeah.
I'm sure you would have.
A great disappointment, I might
have. And sea monkeys.
Yeah. Sea monkeys work. Don't be knocking.
They were brine shrimp.
They're brine shrimp, okay. Yeah. But, sea monkey by any other name would swim as well.
But the little male sea monkey did not have a briefcase and a top hat like in the ad.
No, that was misrepresentation. Absolutely. So I'll see. I'll report back on my experiences using.
It says
you can go to Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
Never before has the Secret Service had to deal with this type of scenario.
Never saw this. This never happened.
Before. No one's ever. It's like computers were just invented.
So just in case you don't know, I'm sure every single person watching this show knows that you do not pick up a USB stick off the ground and stick it into your computer ever. And if you do, make sure it is not a Windows computer and auto run is not turned on. You could,
Unbelievable.
I guess, try it on a Linux computer, although there are firmware hacks called bad USB that you can put on a USB stick that will infect anything. So essentially, if you're going to analyze a USB stick, you really shouldn't do it by sticking it into your computer. This would be a bad idea.
And don't go to China and do that.
Oh, yeah, right. I think the Chinese secret police would know enough not to do that.
Probably.
I think this was the secret agent they sent down there to drive the golf cart.
Obviously, yeah. It's the golf cart guy.
Maxwell Smart.
There has to be different levels, right? Because there's somebody who's got to run by the car. That's got to be not a great job.
This guy is not on the tech team.
He's not on the tech team. And I'm sure as soon as this came out, the guys in the tech team are going, "You did what?" Because now, I mean, if that computer was on the Wi-Fi at Mar-A-Lago, you're screwed.
Yeah. I'm sure it's fine.
I'm sure nothing. What could
They've
possibly
locked it
go
down.
wrong?
I'm sure nothing happened to the president's Android phone.
We'll just wait till President Xi comes out again and he can sweep it. Illinois bill, which I thought was a good idea, but maybe Mr. Technopanic, you don't. There was an Illinois bill banning eavesdropping by IoT devices.
Oh,
Yeah, see, I knew you. You're going to like the name of the bill even better.
Eavesdropping.
The Keep Internet Devices Safe Act was, what is it? KIDSA was passed April 10th.
Did you see the image they used?
Yeah. It's from
the Alexa Silver
Yeah, it's
edition.
from Saturday Night Live's wonderful skit
Hilarious.
on the for seniors.
So how many old Satchel Paige got last night?
Alexandria.
Odessa.
Odessa. By the way, Lisa, we gave one to Lisa's dad who persists in calling it a.
Nice.
And he says, "What's wrong with that?" She responds.
Does she? Interesting. I actually think they should make one.
Right.
Like they should just take whatever
silver
they had
edition.
in that.
Yeah.
It answers to
anything
yo.
even close to Alexa.
Give me a cupcake. The bill, as passed by the Senate, says no private entity may turn on or enable a digital device's microphone unless the registered account holder and another user that is setting up or configuring the device first agrees to the following information in a consumer agreement or privacy notice notifying the registered account holder: 1, that the microphone in the digital device will be turned on or enabled; that 2, what command or action will turn on or enable the microphone. It's not Alexandria. It's not Odessa. 3, the categories of sounds the microphone will be listening for, recording, or disclosing. And 4, the categories of third parties to which the sounds may be disclosed. The bill also requires any recordings or other personal information captured by devices protect against unauthorized access, acquisition, destruction, use, modification, and disclosure of the data. Now, here's the thing. As soon as the lobbyists heard about it, they went in there. They actually didn't rewrite the law. They just took out one little line, the line that says it's punishable.
Mm-hmm. So now there's no
the Internet Association.
no enforcement.
They're getting smart. Yeah, the original bill would have made this an unlawful practice under the Consumer Fraud and Deceptive Business Practices Act, which would result in fines of up to $50,000 per case. The Internet Association managed to get them to take that line out because it would create significant legal liability for companies. They're also
I mean, I don't know if you've had this problem, but my device often just randomly responds to things that aren't even commands. Like the TV says something, or I still can't figure out why.
Apple. Oh well, because it hears things.
I know, but it doesn't. Nothing even close to the name.
You think,
and then it just starts responding.
That's what you say.
Yeah,
it might have heard its name.
I guess.
I'll come into the kitchen. We have a Siri HomePod in the kitchen, and it's usually turned down pretty low, and I'll hear Siri mumbling to herself in the kitchen like a crazy person, just talking on and on and on.
How come Leo never talks to me anymore?
It's like, and then I told him, I'm not going to, anyway.
Well, my favorite was the one not that long ago where it recorded a conversation and then sent it to someone because it misheard the command to record.
That happened to you?
No, to someone. I'm trying to remember the story now.
This is a big deal. It
actually emailed a copy to someone.
It sent
on the contact
a fight
list
between a husband and wife to a former client of that husband who was still in his contact list. It sent them, and the guy went.
You look at the sort of the process of mistaken things it had to go through. Amazon's like, first it mistakenly heard a command to record, then it mistakenly heard. And then it said, do you want me to send this to so-and-so? And it mistakenly heard someone say yes.
Right. None of that's going to happen.
No. Totally.
Except once in a while. Anyway,
Yeah.
I had the same reaction as you when I first read it, Jeff. I said, "Oh, great! This moral panic is going to mean we can't have nice things anymore. They're going to get rid of all, Echo and Google Assistant and all that stuff." So I did kind of feel the same way as you did, Jeff, which is,
I mean, generally they should be transparent. They should have these
They
rules.
should
That's
tell
all
you.
fine.
Yeah.
But the basis of this is, let's also recognize state legislators trying to get stories about them.
yeah, and
So-
actually, this is the best of both worlds, where they passed a law, but it has no effect. It's just exactly what they were hoping for.
There was another state legislature that was trying to pass a law that would create a journalistic license, effectively. I'm trying to remember which state that was.
Oh
So
yeah,
you'd have-
yeah. No.
A license to commit
Yeah.
journalism?
Yeah, and you'd have to be
Yeah.
registered.
I'm a licensed journalist.
The guy who proposed it apparently is not a fan of the people who cover the
Yeah.
Capitol.
Wow.
They have licenses in Italy, actually, which is interesting.
Really?
You have to get a license, yeah. Well, you don't have to. So you can practice as a journalist, but you don't get paid as much.
Oh.
It's like an ACTRA card. So once you get your license, then you can get paid sort of market
An
rates.
unlicensed journalist. We should quickly do the change log, and then it's cupcake time. The Google change log. The Google Pixel camera, now this will get people going, is now looking to see if you're kissing. Snoggovision. If you have a Google Pixel, there is AI. Google actually revealed this in a blog post, that it will help you take selfies by looking for you to smile. Actually, Mike Elgin was using a really cool feature of Photo Booth, where when it sees people smile, it takes a picture. So he set up his Pixel last time he was here on a tripod, and just said, don't worry about it. But if you look at the camera and smile, it's going to take a picture. So he gets all these great pictures. But now it will know if you're kissing. They've added kiss detection to Photo Booth.
My Huawei
You can
does
see
that.
the story now. You can just see it
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
My Huawei will take a picture if you smile.
I want this. I like this Photo Booth feature, and I have a Pixel, but I've really lately been using the Samsung S10, which I just adore.
You like it better than the Pixel?
Yeah. Well, the Pixel camera is bested by none, especially night shot, but it's a little janky in other respects. It's not a great screen, and I've had problems with it. Everybody has. I think there's a QC. There's a quality control issue. But the Samsung is fantastic. And the camera's great in good light. The only thing it's not as good as
Is night shots.
the night shot, which it really Google somehow it's doing black magic there. Google Pay can now automatically import loyalty cards, tickets, and offers. All you have to do is give it access to your Gmail.
Uh-oh.
And your
Google Pay
bank.
spying on you.
I actually
It knows what you buy.
TripIt did that, right? Where you give TripIt your Gmail.
Yeah.
I finally decided I turned that all off, and now I just
You
say,
used to love that.
yeah.
Oh, you used to love
well, I
that.
forward it. If you forward it to plans at TripIt, it'll still do it. But I don't want TripIt going through. We've heard too many
I love
stories.
that Google puts things automatically in my calendar, flights and stuff. I love.
Yeah, me too, actually. I like that too.
And I miss Google Inbox for many reasons, one of which is that it would put my travel stuff together in one lump.
Yeah.
I stopped using Gmail mostly because I was getting a lot of French spam.
What do you use now?
Fastmail, which is a third-party paid service, a good IMAP service. But yeah, those Google services, those are nice, and I do miss those.
They are nice.
Yeah.
The other reason I used Gmail for years is because nobody did a better job at spam. What's your experience on this?
Except John C. Dvorak.
Yeah, right. I get tons of spam on my Google account now. Is that
Really?
Is it not working?
I don't get any.
Okay, so there's something going on.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable. The filter is almost never wrong.
Oh man, I get almost
I
nothing
haven't
but
looked at-
spam.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's why I stopped using it.
Oh.
Maybe you're doing it wrong.
I'm sure I am. I'm notorious for that. Why, just the other day, I stuck a USB drive into a
That I found on the
that I
street.
found on the street. I didn't understand this story, but I'm going to repeat it. The Google Play Store is testing simultaneous downloads, internal app sharing, and more. I thought it always did simultaneous downloads.
Yeah. Is that new?
Well, no, it was serial. It would download
one app at a time. Okay, all right. Well, now it'll do multiple.
I didn't know that. Huh.
Okay, that's nice.
But wouldn't it logically take the same amount of time anyway?
Yes,
theoretically.
If it uses all your bandwidth, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, but it looks better. Looks like it's doing more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apple is serial. Maybe that's why, because they want to be better than Apple. Internal app sharing, which is good for businesses. It means that if you're a developer in a large company, you can share your app internally without having to go through the Play Store. It's a switch. You can turn on internal app sharing, so you can download and install test versions of apps that are shared with you. I guess anybody could use this, not just internally at a company. And there is a new interface on Google Play Protect. The main Protect UI still has the recently scanned apps, but the settings to scan the device and improve harmful app detection have been moved to another screen. Maybe it confused people. So settings are now after the gear instead of all on one page. Maybe they're going to add more settings, so they needed to make some room for it. The Google Home Hub. We thought there was going to be a new one, but I guess they're just rebranding it to the Nest Hub.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, it's not really a feature.
No.
I probably didn't have to put that in the
I'm not
change
excited.
log.
I think that's...
Waymo launches a robo-taxi app on Google Pay. I'm excited about this. You could call a Waymo and come up here, Jeff.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. Yeah. It won't freak on the bridge.
This is
like every human should.
The commercial robo-taxi service is called Waymo One. Right now, it's in Phoenix. I imagine it will roll out to a larger area at some point.
Next time in Phoenix, I'll try it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll be added to a wait list when you to get the app. No, not for the ride. To get the app, once accepted, you'll be able to request rides in the app. There's an early rider program. This is, this is coming. I wonder when we're going to get this in.
I would have tried that when I was in Phoenix.
Yeah, next time you're in Phoenix, give it a shot. And I think that's enough. I think that's quite enough of the Google changelog. That's quite enough. I was all excited about the Galaxy Fold from Samsung.
Yeah,
the folding
they're
phone.
falling apart.
And yes, initial reviews were quite
That's
positive.
exactly what I thought was going to happen.
They were quite positive. And then it started breaking. Steve Kovac at CNBC, Mark Gurman at Bloomberg, Dieter Bohn of The Verge all reported major failures of their Fold displays. Now, these are review units provided to these reporters. In all three cases, just a couple of days after getting them, Marcus Brownlee having similar problems. Bohn and Kovac claim their displays failed without removing the panel's protective film. Samsung says don't take it off. Both Gurman and Marcus did remove it. As you can see, it doesn't look good. Bohn's phone got crimped. They're not sure how. Maybe some debris got in the hinge. So this just saved me $1,980 because the phone is available at T-Mobile on the 25th, and I was going to run over, get one to show to review and show, because I don't get review units. And this, by the way, is one of the reasons I don't like to get review units, because who knows, this might be a pre-production issue that isn't going to show up in the retail version. So it's very hard when you're reviewing something that isn't a production version to say anything, because you don't know if the problem you're facing is because it's pre-production or because it's a real problem. So nevertheless, I think I'm going to take it seriously enough.
Wait a bit. Not
to spend $2,000 this coming Friday, but to wait a little bit. Just to see.
Never buy version 1.0 of anything.
Well, I kind of have to, and I'm very glad, for instance, I got the S10 Plus. I love this phone. I love this phone more than I've loved any phone in years. It's really, really good. And the funny thing is, all of these guys initially said, "Oh, I get it. I see now why you want a folding phone. This thing is incredible." Until a day later, it broke. Yikes! Incidentally, I think a lot of people bought it because I wasn't able. They had it for pre-order on the Samsung page. Very quickly after the pre-orders opened, they put up a thing saying, "We've got too many orders. Can't pre-order it anymore." Let's talk about the takedown of the takedown. And my favorite part of the takedown is the explanation. So Stars issued a takedown on Twitter of Torrent Freak, which is a really good site that publishes lots of information about sharing, BitTorrents and so forth. They published an article about how a number of Stars TV episodes had been leaked. And in the article, they had a thumbnail of one of the episodes, not one of the leaked episodes, but a thumbnail from one of the shows.
No, that is one of the leaked ones.
Is it? Oh, it is, because it
That
says
one that
for
says for
screeners
screening.
only, and that's why they put the... Well, that's in the article. I think I don't know what the thumbnail on Twitter looked like, but that's in the article. And that was for purposes of showing that these leaks probably came from screeners, right?
Yeah.
Which is newsworthy. Stars yanked it off Twitter, claiming DMCA violation. Then the EFF wrote about it, and Stars pulled the EFF's tweet.
So I think I actually tweeted about it before the EFF, not to brag, but I saw this tweet from Torrent Freak that said their story, a link to their story had disappeared, that this tweet had disappeared. So I posted something saying this is disturbing, that a link to a news story gets taken down because of the DMCA. There's no links to any of the torrents. There's no links to how to get them. It's literally just a news story. And then I got a notification from Twitter. This is Sunday afternoon. Your tweet's been removed.
Oh my God, you got removed too.
Complaint. Yeah. So just because I'm that type of person, I posted a screenshot of that, of the removed or withheld tweet. And I said, gee, it'd be too bad if a bunch of people also shared the link to this news story. And then that tweet was taken down.
Oh!
Yeah.
Well, so Mathew Ingram of the Columbia Journalism Review and the Electronic Frontier Foundation tweets also taken down. Tweets about the tweet, which in itself wasn't really a copyright violation.
Unbelievable.
I've
And the
just been
first
told that
DMCA
YouTube is going to take down this episode because you're talking about it.
YouTube's been really on a rampage taking stuff down of ours.
Have they?
Yeah. But I think they have a new content ID stuff, and it's just a little aggressive or whatever. We always
So Star's explanation was that
That's
they
what
had
cracks me up.
outsourced this to a third party who went overboard.
They
But
say we were
The
hacked.
notification I got. Yeah, right. Yeah. It's the old we were hacked.
We were hacked. So they said because we were hacked, we hired. This makes no sense, by the way. It recently incurred a security breach, which prompted the company to hire a third party for copyright enforcement. Okay, and this okay, and the third party apparently felt like the DMCA takedowns were within its scope. Is your tweet back up?
Yeah, so Twitter notified me, I think this morning maybe, or that the tweets have been restored. And it also said that my account would not be penalized.
Oh,
as a result of
congratulations.
this. Yeah. So it wasn't a strike in terms of the 3 or 4 strikes or whatever you get.
Phew, says Mathew.
Yeah. I just thought it was outrageous. Not just the link, the Torrent Freak link to their story, but anyone who mentioned that link. Other people had their, Anne-Marie Bridey, who's an IP expert and law professor, had a tweet of hers taken down.
Jesus.
It was just like they were going bananas. And of course, Twitter's, I wrote this in the thing that I wrote for CJR about it. The problem is Anne-Marie pointed out, there is all kinds of penalties if you don't take stuff down. There is zero penalty if you do take stuff down incorrectly. So
Witness prior
the
discussion about
incentive-
regulation in Europe. Yes.
Exactly. And so that's why the incentive is to take everything down just in case.
Well, clearly that's what's going on YouTube. It's all going on Twitter. It's going on everywhere. And welcome to the new world of takedowns. And everybody's going to see this all the time. And unfortunately, it's going to hit people like us hard.
But it was worse because it was a news story. I mean, this reminded me of what they call super injunctions in the UK, where if there's a case, a super injunction means not only can you not mention the case, you can't even mention that there's an injunction.
Yeah, it's a chilling effect.
Yeah,
it discourages people from doing what they're legally allowed to do. And this is just a little behind the scenes. This is when I was playing that Songify this, somebody came running in saying, "Don't play that. We don't want to be taken down."
Right.
And that's the chilling effect.
But that's clear fair use.
You know that. I know that. And they know that. It's not a question of whether it's just.
And that's what bothers me about a lot of these.
It's a chilling effect. We don't want to be taken down. Costs us money.
Fair use is complicated, and it requires a court decision. And so everybody just pretends that it doesn't exist.
Right.
This is why we need internet courts, so that these things are decided where they should be decided in courts.
Well,
because right now they're being decided without due process.
I don't know. Do we?
In a way, I mean, honestly, that would be superior to what is happening, which is
that's what this guy was saying.
I mean, the right to be forgotten. Who is the judge in the right to be forgotten?
Right.
Google.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
That's ridiculous.
And there's no transparency.
Yeah.
There's no transparency. There's no due process. Yeah. The person who proposed this from a legal world said that in society we negotiate our legal norms in public.
Yeah.
And this is happening in private companies where you have no basis. And it's not the company's fault. The companies are being forced to do this by government. So I couldn't believe that I was going to like this proposal. I like it.
Yeah. The real issue is that the Constitution was written in so long ago in such a different era that it is increasingly becoming less.
Be careful, my friend, because that's what people are starting to say, saying maybe the First Amendment's not so great and we should have less speech. I hate that talk.
Well, but wouldn't internet courts, I mean, that's
the internet court would enforce the law as it exists.
I guess it could be constitutional. It's just
vague
crap. It's just a law.
Like the Brits take down in the blue white paper they did, take down, as Mathew said earlier, trolling, insult, disinformation.
I mean, there's no question that outsourcing the regulation of speech to massive tech platforms is not a great strategy.
No, that's a bad idea.
All right, regulating speech of any sort should be. Take a break.
Let's take a break, and it's our last break. So you guys get your bits and pieces.
All ready for you.
Trigs and
berries.
I'll
get my bits together.
Get your bits together, and I will talk about the best place to exercise your right to free speech, your personal website. Everybody, every company ought to have a website, a place they can call their own, a place where your best stuff lives, a place where when people Google you, they find your site. I tell every teenager, get you to WordPress.com, create a website, get your domain name, preferably your own name, put stuff up there so that when people search for you, they find your best stuff. It's so important. And if you're a business, it goes double. A business that's not online practically doesn't exist. Now, you may say, well, I have a Facebook page. I have a Twitter account. You need your own spot. Sure, you can have your Facebook page and your Twitter feed and all that stuff, and it should link to your website, but you got to have the website. And the best place to do it, the easiest place to do it, WordPress.com. And I know whereof I speak. Started blogging almost 20 years ago, and in those days, there weren't a lot of choices. I used Blogger and some weird programs like Gray Matter, Movable Type. But then Matt Modelenweg came along and with WordPress, and man, I fell in love. WordPress was amazing. LeoLaporte.com lives on WordPress.com because they do all the heavy lifting. They are hosting it. They keep it secure. They even get a domain name for you. So you can focus on the reason you're on the web, to show your best site, to build a fan base, start a blog, open a store, design a portfolio. They've got powerful site building tools that are easy to use. You don't have to be a geek. Thousands of themes. And the best support 24 hours a day, even on weekends, from not, page-turning notebook jockeys, but real WordPress experts, people who use it and love it themselves. So they're going to have answers for you. They're going to have suggestions. They're going to have ideas. I even asked them, what template should I use? And they had some great suggestions. WordPress.com. It lets anyone pursue whatever it is they love by launching a site that's free to start but can grow with you as you grow, all the way up to an online store. No 2-week trials, no hidden fees. And WordPress users own their own content forever. Upload anything, text, pictures, video, music, whatever you want. Download it again, too. It's never stuck. It's not a silo. It's the World Wide Web, baby. And you know what? It's so good that WordPress now powers 33% of the internet. 1/3 of all the internet is on WordPress. And some of the best websites, some of the biggest publications are on WordPress.com. Millions of people use WordPress.com every day to turn their dreams into reality. Why don't you? Go to WordPress.com/twig. Check it out. If you decide to buy a new plan, you'll get 15% off any new plan purchase with the code you'll find there. That's WordPress.com/twig. 15% off your new website at WordPress.com/twig. Do use that URL so they know you heard it here. We thank you for your support. We thank WordPress.com for their support. And personally, I thank Matt Mullenweg for making some great software and for 12 years at WordPress.
Amen to that.
Yeah, Matt's an amazing guy. What a great guy.
He is a great guy.
Yeah.
And it's a great product.
A whole new model.
He's a little bit like Craig Newmark, where he's one of these guys who's a founder who just kind of quietly does his stuff and does such a great job. It's really cool. Mathew Ingram, Columbia Journalism Review. Share something with us.
I think I suggested this earlier, but I sort of like the idea that when it comes to rebuilding Notre-Dame, they may wind up using Assassin's Creed because the designer, one of the designers for the game, said she spent almost 2 years modeling the inside of Notre-Dame for the game. Every brick, every piece of wood, so there's this incredible 3D model of what is now gone. I just find that fascinating.
Thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Soon as and here's, by the way, a picture from Assassin's Creed. So of the assassin sitting on the roof looking across. What is this? 18th century Paris? It looks like it at Notre-Dame.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I love Assassin's Creed. I hadn't played Unity, so I'll have to. I think I own it. I'll have to download it. Yeah, it's the French. It's during the French Revolution. Thank goodness. I of course, as I'm sure many people did, went back when I saw the fire. Went back to my own pictures of Notre Dame from many visits over the years, and such memories. And as I looked inside and I saw all those wooden sculptures, and of course the beautiful rose windows, and I thought, oh my God, I hope this isn't lost. I think this big rose window here on the south face is safe.
It sounds like the rose windows are relatively safe.
All of the rose windows.
All of them?
Yeah.
Oh, hallelujah.
All three of them are safe.
Oh.
What they don't know is what impact the fire had on the masonry.
Right.
So the wood is gone for sure.
Yeah.
But they don't know. I mean, it's 800-year-old, plaster.
Right.
It's unclear what heat would do to that.
Wow. This model is very complete. Look at this.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. I hope they don't put like the cannons back, but the rest of it, that's very cool.
I didn't realize that the gargoyles, most of them are relatively modern. So I thought they dated back to, the 13th century.
Yeah, there was a big remodel in the 19th century, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I have
And
pictures.
I also read that, so the rooster that was on top of the steel part of the spire?
No.
So there was a rooster right at the very, very top of the metal pole on the spire. And when they put that there in 1935, they put bits of various saints into the rooster.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah. And so the idea was it was going to be like a spiritual lightning rod. So they would protect the church.
Yikes.
And the rooster
Catholics are
survived.
Weird. Yeah.
The rooster survived. And the crown of thorns was, can you imagine being the priest who went in?
Had to go get it. Yeah.
And
there was the fire department chaplain.
He was the head of the fire brigade. Yeah.
It was the same guy who ran into the Bataclan nightclub after the mass shooting there. But can you imagine being that guy, and he's carrying in his hands, whether you believe it's the actual crown of thorns or not, he probably does, the crown of thorns.
I remember going to when I was in Italy, we went into the catacombs. I think it was at Assisi. And so, St. Francis is there, and there are all these relics, bits and pieces of fingers and toes and whatnot that were passed around for centuries. And the guy who was doing the tour said, every church like this has bits and pieces of what they say are the true cross.
Right.
He said, if you put all those bits together, you could build like a shopping mall.
Yeah. There was a very brisk business in relics and reliquaries in the Middle Ages. It's kind of hard to know what the provenance of any of that stuff is.
We were in the church in Pisa. It's where the leaning thing is, but it's actually got a beautiful church as well. And in the church, there is Saint, I can't remember his name now, but he's the patron saint. And so they have him in a sarcophagus on top of the altar. Yeah. And it describes how they basically, one guy had to go around and pick up bits of him from all over the country and then try and put them back together.
This is
that'd be a fun job.
This is from the grand front door at Notre-Dame, and you could see how much detail in the carvings. And it would be so sad if that had been lost. I'm so glad that it's preserved.
I also didn't know one of the towers is a little taller than the other.
Yes.
They're not identical.
Yeah. I don't know if that was intentional. Sometimes you see that with where perspective. What was it? Was it the Parthenon? I think it's the Parthenon, where it's actually built askew just so that it doesn't look like it's fallen over when you look up at it. These Greeks. Jeff Jarvis,
thought of everything.
You've got four different things.
I got two.
Okay.
I got two I'm going to do. My favorite Onion headline in quite a while. Pete Buttigieg stuns campaign crowd by speaking to manufacturing robots in fluent binary.
Nice.
The South Bend mayor.
I'd almost believe it. His French was excellent.
He did his French.
His Norwegian is excellent too.
Oh man.
So 0101100100000 said the 37-year-old South Bend, Indiana mayor to the awestruck machines, delivering the message by emitting a series of high-pitched tones and beeps with a perfect accent.
Nice. Good one.
And I'll bet if you somehow decoded the binary, it actually says something, I'm sure. But
at press time, U.S. manufacturing robots had donated $10 million to Buttigieg's campaign and helped him surge to the top of the polls. That is
we'll be there soon.
That is great.
So the other one.
Are you trading in your Kamala hat for Buttigieg?
No. I'm still Kamala.
All right.
I'm still.
I think Harris Buttigieg, as weird as a bumper sticker as that would be, would be a killer team.
Would be Kamala Pete. But the other thing, Leo, since you are so eager to constantly protest social media, I finally have the way that you can do it in public.
I'm joining this.
There's only one condition.
Yes.
You have to do it naked.
Oh, what?
Spencer Tunick, who does all these famous naked people.
Yes, I've seen his pictures. Yeah.
He's going to do one in New York to protest censorship on social media. And it's called, what the hell was it? I missed it now. It's it has a hashtag already.
Hashtag we the nipple.
We the nipple. We the nipple.
Okay. This is like a full-time job.
It was a very Canadian moment there from Mathew.
Okay.
Okay.
I just love that his name's Spencer Tunick.
I am not coming out for that. I'm just going to tell you right now. No, ain't nobody want to see that.
But you've been doing the keto thing. You're ripped probably now.
If only. But notice I'm sitting in front of all these cupcakes. Yeah.
Say your staff is torturing you.
I feel I feel nothing.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
I have no urges or anything. No.
Yeah.
They're just there. They don't speak to me anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this thrilling and gripping edition of This Week in Google. Mr. Gelato in Perugia, Mathew Ingram, we thank you so much for joining us, Chief Digital Writer at cjr.org.
Thank you for having me.
On short notice, no less. We appreciate that. Thank you. Jeff Jarvis, Professor of Journalism at the City University of New York. Great to have you, TV Guide, former TV Guide critic.
On my tombstone.
The joke there is that when we last saw Jeff on MSNBC, for reasons no one understands, that was his lower third title. Former TV guide, critic, and blogger Jeff Jarvis.
Wow.
It's all true. It's not untrue.
Yeah.
All true. All true.
Probably the least of your...
praise.
Yeah, faint praise. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to go smoke my meat, but we're glad you tuned in for This Week in Google. We do the show every Wednesday afternoon, 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern, 20:30 UTC. You can watch or listen live at twit.tv/live. Download on-demand versions of the show at twit.tv/twig. But the best thing, the thing that would make my heart go pit-a-pat, is if you would subscribe in your favorite podcatcher. That does a number of things. First of all, it guarantees you'll have the show the minute it comes out, so you can get it on your Thursday morning commute. It also tells the creator of that podcast application that we're popular, and often that helps us get high in the directories there. And it also helps with our downloads. We know that you're watching. Gives us a signal that people want us to keep doing that show. So please subscribe in your favorite podcast application. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on This Week in Google. Bye-bye.